Morals and ethics. These are two words that we just do not hear much of in our daily conversation or practice. These two words apply to our social relations as well as our business practices. These two words are the glue that make others trust society and its modus operandi of right decisions. Let's see what Mr. Daniel Webster says of these two words and examine them from their denotation and connotation accepted by society. Morals are concerned with the judgment of the goodness or badness of human actions and character. Moral or ethical strength. Ethical or ethics. Being in accordance with the accepted principles of right and wrong that govern the conduct of a profession. The word morals carry a certain foundation and structure, for it is concerned with the judgment of the goodness and badness of human actions and character. It was a time when we would hear things like that was an immoral act, or her behavior was very unethical. Where have these comments vanished to? Why is it we as a society have no morals or ethical standard? And who is the author of said standards? It would seem today nothing is wrong, in error, or for that matter, criminal until one is caught with their hands in the cookie jar. Mr. Elijah Muhammad, in a speech in Washington, D.C., May 29, 1959, spoke of a moral clarity for the so-called American Negro in relationship to our own history in North America, from slavery, civil rights, human rights, to the right to vote. He said, by now, it should be ever so clear, meaning from 1865 to 2008, that politics will no more solve our problems than it did the difficulties facing Israel during her bondage in Egypt. We have come to the brink of extinction. We must now and here make an agonizing reappraisal of our way of life if we care anything for ourselves, our lives, our people, our human race, the future of our properties, wives, and children. Justice is a common thing, yet it is elusive. Men have sought its meaning and substance since time began. Plato assured that justice was nothing more than the wish of the strongest member of society. Jesus equated justice with brotherhood. Shakespeare saw it as a matter of mercy. I am here to tell you that justice is the eventual working out of the will of God, as indicated in the fundamental principles of truth. Justice is the antithesis of wrong, the weapon God will use to bring judgment upon the world, the purpose and consummation of his coming. This manuscript, Nonviolent Will Travel, Islam in North America, to this point is full of the right of moral and ethical dissertations on life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness in relationship to those who control the human being destiny on this earth, not in space. These people are those who we see physically and those who we don't see physically, but still exercise power over others. In the 42nd chapter of the Holy Quran, entitled The Council, this chapter explains how the human being should discriminate among themselves in making moral and ethical judgment for themselves and for their community. At the end of this chapter, it tells the reader how God, the supreme human intelligence, or if you believe spiritual intelligence, communicate with live physical people on top of the earth. Holy Quran 42, 51-52 read, "It is not given to a human being that Allah God should speak to him except by direct revelation, or from behind a veil, or by sending a messenger, an angel, who should reveal to him by his command what he pleases. Indeed, he is the most sublime, the all-wise." Prophet, just so as we sent revelations to other prophets, we revealed to you the word by our command. Before this revelation, you did not know what the divine book was, nor which of the faith it teaches, but we made it our revelation to you, a light whereby we guide such of our servants as we will. And truly you are guiding mankind on to the straight and right path. Now, why today, in the onset of the 21st century, no one seemingly know the answers to anything that plague the human being society? Let's briefly look at a couple of examples of this weakness we have acquired collectively in solving issues and problems. I believe this is so in our inability to make moral decisions as a result of a lack of moral courage among leadership as well as the general public. To say and mean it, "Get behind me, Satan," or "let's just stop doing evil, error, or sin." Why moral courage? It's an action that goes to the very root of the human experience. The judgment of goodness or badness of human actions and character. Let's take, for example, pharmaceuticals. Most scholars of ethics say it is immoral and unethical for doctors to invest in companies where they have a say in the success of that product. Why? Because the chances of abuse for profit is too convenient. The abuse being the clinical trials. This is a moral and ethical judgment that affects society behavior for the better, considering the greed of individuals, which is the reason for such restraint in the first place. Greed can desire to exploit others for labor or wealth. Again, briefly, let's look at one of the oldest institutions of North America and European immigration into Native American property. The practice of free labor, or child labor, or slavery. Most European citizens of this new land did not consider chattel slavery immoral nor unethical. from 1492 to 1865. And if they did, the weakness of their moral authority in relations to the masses kept them very quiet in the general public, lest they be labeled and ostracized as nigger lovers. So here we see where morals and ethics can be manipulated to mean this for one race, nation, or people, and that for another. And of course, the slave morals and ethics were dependent on their interpretation of their obedience to their masters. This was and is the most lengthy period of time in North America where we can study these two concepts and how they have been utilized by the founding fathers. One set for masters, one set for slaves. Study them in relationship to the 300 years they was in action and the 143 years they have been in gyration to Jim Crow, civil rights, voting rights, reparations, crack cocaine, or powder cocaine sentencing laws. The morals and ethical standard of these combined 443 years of the American so-called Negro status have proven quite good for one race as far as economically, and absolutely disastrous for the weaker race economically, politically, and socially. Finally, there's the filming of the New England Patriot opponent in that effort to steal signal from the opposing teams. The bylaws of the National Football League say it's all right to steal the signals if you can, but it is totally illegal and unethical to film them. So in all three of these instances, the ruling class of the moment determined what is moral and ethical in this or that instant of human behavior towards other human beings. We, most human beings, would say nature supersedes the power of the legislator, and nature have laws that are immutable, constant, with very little unauthorized changes. One of nature's major laws is the law of justice, which is totally based on what is moral. How so? The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, justice was a common thing, yet it is elusive. What makes justice elusive is the power of men to determine in council what is moral or immoral without taking the natural order of creation as a guide. In the book Brotherhood, War, and Revolution, page 37, chapter 3, the prophet message, it says, in order for mankind, to realize his divinity of fellowship with God, the path must be followed, not on the basis of a superficial law, but on the basis of a superior law, the law of love. In Scripture, the heart is the central force and source of a man's entire mental and moral activity. If purity is lacking, then man cannot radiate that which required him to uplift himself or the community. Mutual love, which is charity, can only spring from a pure heart, good conscience, and sincere faith. On page 249, chapter 10 of the book, White Nationalism and the Integrity of Black Interests, the writer examined the moral concept of the title of said book In conclusion, he says, the concept of a political covenant between members of society stems from the early days of the American democratic experiment. In 1630, aboard the Arbella, as it sailed from England to the New World, the Puritan leader, John Winthrop, addressed his fellow passengers on the duty that members of a community owe each other. His sermon, entitled A Model of Christian Charity, includes a warning that the Massachusetts experiment would be closely scrutinized. We shall be as a city upon a hill. The eyes of all people are upon us, so that if we shall deal falsely with our God in this work we have undertaken, we shall be made a story and a byword throughout the world. 15 years later, in the course of a lawsuit brought against him for overstepping his power as governor of the Massachusetts Bay Colony, he spoke of two kinds of law: natural law and the law which he called civil or federal. It may also be termed moral, in reference to the covenant between God and man. In the moral law and the public covenant and constitution among men themselves. This liberty is the proper end and object of authority and cannot subsist without it, and it is a liberty that only which is good, just, and honest. Winthrop's formulation suggests that he considered civil or federal law to be more responsible than natural law, even conservative and useful to the production in a society, because the moral covenant regulated the activity of official institutions. Unhappily, Ronald Reagan, the former president, frequent use of the metaphor of a shining city set on a hill were ironic, for it echoed Winthrop but implied nothing of the Puritan leader reminder of the responsibilities all persons in a society hold for each of its members. Now, the moral to our discussion is, where is the backbone in society to say something is just plain wrong? Why it is nowadays we prefer to color everything in shades of gray instead of black and white, good or evil, or positive and negative. Even your personal behavior is good for society or it is not. What's good for you may be absolutely demoralizing and satanic to society. Child pedophilia is an example of this. Adultery, wife beating, or husband beating, elderly abuse, or child abuse, mostly sexually. These things are morally reprehensible. However, as a society, we continue to facilitate the mechanism to make these type of behavior possible daily through the internet and other mass media publications. Undressing the woman in print and video images is a major contributor to low-life sexual deviations. We cannot hide behind freedom of speech to commit moral error that benefit the few, but decimate the many in error, sin, sickness, and disease. The gun and weapon industry are satanic in their hiding behind the Second Amendment to bear arms, to intentionally sell street sweepers, whether handheld or military style, to an unstable society of dissatisfied people who have been reared on violence, shaped on violence, visualized violence on television and the movies since birth. It's just a recipe for we sell, you buy, they kill. Let's repeat the storyline. Columbine, Virginia Tech, Louisiana Tech, Northern Illinois, and the local city council. Then there's a 14-year-old Oxnard, California boy walking in the classroom and repeatedly shooting his classmate in the head for what he perceived as his justice for his classmate gay manners towards him, as well as the Arizona 8-year-old shooting of his father and roommate. What a violent world. Al Bubble seems to be the main terrorist threat of the day. We all should immediately join the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and not carry a penknife, for God is well able to protect those who do denounce weapons of small or mass destruction. And in this way, we can separate the tares from the wheat, which have grew together in this violent society of slavery, Jim Crow, and have gun will travel. The gun industry say the gun don't kill people. It's the people use the gun that kill people. But would these same people leave an unlocked gun in the hand of a 3-year-old fully loaded? How about a 6-year-old or even a 12-year-old without telling him the operating manual of the do's and don'ts? The gun must be secure from the manufacture process to the distribution. Why guns at all if you believe in Jesus? Is this not supposedly a Christian nation? Then why do so many Christians own guns for their protection instead of depending on their Lord and Savior? This sounds like that old-time religion or praise the Lord and pass the ammunition of the pagan Constantine before he was born again on his deathbed, not while he lived. Think over that. There is just no moral justification for the proliferation of guns availability other than the aim and purpose of fostering a society of instant and easily death to the dissatisfied. Those who rule makers these moral judgments to continue to facilitate evil, filth, and debauchery in the name of freedom and gun violence. Make no mistake, how many citizens or innocent victims must die at the hand of the Second Amendment before the politician gets some moral backbone? You cannot go back to a time when the human being did not believe in a superior power that is referred to as God, Jehovah, Yahweh, Father, Jesus. Many names of God among many ethnic groups and nationalities. In all of these nation states, this God was a God of justice, and his justice was predicated upon his moral judgment. This is where we, the human being, derive our moral from, supposedly. Justice is the eventual working out of the will of God as indicated in the fundamental principles of truth among the oppressed and the oppression in the land of the free and the home of the brave, and a gun in every kitchen and driveway. Elijah Muhammad, like unto John Winthrop, in his address to his fellow passengers on the travel to the New World, said in 1959 in Washington, D.C., that justice is the antithesis of wrong, the weapon God will use to bring judgment upon the world, the purpose and consummation of his coming in person. The justice will be exercised or manifested not through the weapon of steel. This is the mischief-making weapon of choice to kill and destroy. But his justice will be manifested through the forces of nature, rain, hail, snow, earthquake, and that nature turning on rulership or unjust practices. The prophet do not lie. As it is written, so shall it be. So we can think of any reason why our society maybe need a judge of moral standard, or should we continue to go on living day in and day out in the valley of the shadow of death by the gun? Exactly who is the author of this violent society of death that we live under? How can morality and ethics save us from an ultimate demise? Remember, in Revelation 6 chapter, you have two horses, and when the third seal was opened, a black horse, and its rider appeared with a balance of justice in his hand. And when the fourth seal was opened, a pale horse appeared, and its rider's name was Death, and hell followed him. What rider and horse are you following? Or what horse are you riding? Where are you riding to? Who are you riding with? Are you helping others or destroying others? Do justice and peace follow you, or Cain and dissatisfaction in all walk of your life follow you?